Okay, so right now I'm going to talk about a bit about how do we rig, the most difficult parts of the human body rig, which is going to be the legs and the arm rig. So right now, what you will be doing for lab 3 is one portion is just like lab 2. There's going to be a rigging portion where we provide you, this time we provide you with this segmented looking mannequin model, and you are going to rig it to make sure that you can actually move the legs and the arms properly. So right now, no, the rig does not come with joints and controls like this, but I'm assuming by now you all know how to add joints and controllers, correct? Oh, and before we move on, of course, make sure that you also freeze transformation all the joints before you, all the controllers before you move on, because you don't want that problem to arise down the line later. So right now I'm going to talk about, so first of all, I'm going to show, let me open the outliner right here. We have the different types of, as you can see, we have all the different controllers separately labeled. You'll notice how for the arms, I have 2 for the wrist actually. We will get into why I actually made 2 controllers for the wrist, but other than that, it's pretty logical. You add a joint whenever your body essentially bends, which, as you can see, is indicated by spheres. So right now, what I'm going to do is, first up, I'm going to show how we're going to rig and constrain the torso once you have the controllers. So once you create the joints and controllers, it's simply, what you need to do first is you need to make sure that, so I have the head controller, parent the head controller to the torso controller, parent the torso to the waist, and parent the waist to the pelvis. So reverse parent backwards, just like how you needed to reverse parent like the head to the neck joint in lab 2 for the head rig. Okay, so once you have made and applied the constraints, the next step you're going to do is you are going to apply constraints. So to move the pelvis around, you are going to, so I'm just going to show the joint structure. So I already have it labeled, pelvis, body 1, body 2, and head. So we're going to take the pelvis joint, we're going to click on the pelvis controller, and then we are going to go to rigging, constraint, and go to parent constraint, and make sure maintain offset is checked, and hit apply. And then for the upper joints, we're going to apply the rotation, the orient constraint instead. And then we're going to do the same to the 2 joints above. And that's about it for the torso. Any questions about the torso? So as you can see, I can move the pelvis around, and I can click on all the upper controllers, and I can click on the rotation, and yeah, the legs doesn't look right. That's because we haven't even rigged them yet, but as you can see, at least the spine works properly. So are we good with the spine joint and the pelvis joint? All right. So, all right, now let's get into the more nitty-gritty, the new stuff that we haven't really talked about starting from lab 2. So we are going to go into the leg controllers and the leg rigging stage, and we are going to need to introduce to a new kind of constraint called the IK constraint and the pole vector constraint. So an IK constraint is like, it's like, imagine that you have a single point, it's like, imagine kind of like a robot arm, but you can control like a robot arm by, you tell one point where you want exactly where the robot arm will reach. So you move the point around and the arm will automatically reorient itself as long as the hand is following the point that you drag. So it's like a one control system that allows you to drag around and the foot will follow where you drag the controller. So that's the basis of what the IK constraint will do. And then on top of the IK constraint, we can use something called a pole vector, which will, you can, if you point your knee, you could point your knee to the left or right, and the pole vector will allow you to be able to point your knee in some other direction other than straight forward. So those are the 2 functionalities that we are going to add for the leg. So what I'm going to do is, so as you can see, just like the facial rigging, you can see how I have different layers, but I made a new one later called the reverse foot layer, and this is because we'll create some additional helper joints to help manipulate our foot a bit more, but we want to do it in a layer where once we're done making it, we want to hide it from view so you don't mess up again. So just like Lab 2, add the control, joint, a mesh, and now a reverse foot layer. That's what's new. Or, I mean, you could call reverse foot, but I could just also just call this, I'll just call this the leg IK layer just to contain everything. Okay, so right now I have the leg, and what I'm going to do is, in order to access the IK constraint, you're going to go to the rigging. You're going to, actually, you can just do it by just going to the rigging tab and see how your three icons from the left. There is something called the Create IK handle, and looks like kind of like a leg joint with a little of a bowstring attached through it. You're going to double click on it. And I'm going to move it to the side. Okay, so right now, what you are going to use is called the rotate plane solver. But before we rotate the plane solver, the question is, when you lift your foot up and down, you need to set a direction where, how your leg is going to actually bend forward and backwards, because, if you raise your foot, by default, you think that your foot would bend forwards like this, but Maya stupid, sometimes they'll try crank your leg and, I don't know, deform it to the side, and some ugly matters like that. So to ensure that the leg actually, rotates and looks proper when we move the foot around, what we need to do is, I'm going to take the foot and legs, and I'm actually going to rotate it backwards like this. And then, with the leg selected, I'm going to go to okay, back in rigging tab, let's go to in skeleton tab, go to what is called set preferred angle, which means that every time you lift the foot, it's actually going to, bend your knee like how a knee would normally bend and not to the side. I'll repeat with the other joint. Okay, so once you're done, I'm going to take the rotation and I'm going to zero that out. Okay, so now that we've set the preferred angle, let's make the actual IK handle. So make sure that you're on rotate plane solver, and what I'm going to do is you just click from the waist to the ankle. And you can do the same on the other side as well. Good. So then after this point, right now, I can click on the IK handle I made, I can drag it around, and looks like a leg to me. Looks like how a leg should move if I drag this point around. And then we're going to go into what I mentioned, the pole vector. So in order to create a pole vector, I'm going to create, okay, at this point on, I'm going to work on just one leg, but you repeat the same procedure for the other leg. So I'm going to create a pole vector, so I'm going to make one locator, or whichever controller that you like the best, and then I am going to move it in front of the knee. Then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to add the pole vector to the controller, because it's also another control that you'll be using to manipulate the leg. Then I am going to click on the pole vector, click on the IK handle, go to constraint, and go to pole vector constraint. And now what I can do is I can lift the leg, but I can also use this pole vector, and I can also change where the knee is pointing. So that's what the pole vector does. Okay, so now we're going to talk a bit more about the reverse foot chain. So has Nicoletta talked what a reverse foot joint chain system does before?
Yeah. Last week she went over.
Yeah, I believe that she went over. So right now I'm going to show how you actually make it. So in order to do the reverse foot chain, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-enable the mesh. I'm going to look at the model. I'm going to look at the rig from the side. I'm going to go make new foot joints. So what I'm going to do is this time make a foot joint from the heel, make one around the toe, the ball, and the ankle. So what you will do is And then I'm going to hide the mesh again. I am going to make sure that I actually snap all of, so you snap by holding the D and V key at the same time, snap the joints to around where the original joints are, and for the heel, hold the D key and estimate where the heel is. Like about there, it's good. Okay, so what the reverse heel, okay, so what I'm going to do next is I am going to create some, so what we do have now is, you see I have the foot controller, so first off we're going to do is, okay, actually first off what I'm going to need to do is, it's actually to label these joints because it's always a good idea to label. So I'm going to call this rev for reverse, I'll call this left heel joint, rev left ball joint, no, it's toe joint. Rev L ball joint, and rev L ankle joint. Okay, so now that I have those created, I'm going to take these joints and I'm going to add it to the leg IK layer so it looks blue, so it's easier to see what it is. And I'm going to take the IK handle we made, I'm going to label this as L IK leg, and I'm going to also add it to the leg IK layer so we can actually easily see it. Okay, so real briefly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the joints. I'm going to call this as the Rev L foot group. And then, okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to first make sure that the foot controller, you parent constrain to reverse foot chain. So constrain, maintain, apply parent constraint. Oh, yeah, I need to click on the controller first, then click on the reverse foot, the entire group, not just the joints, hit apply, and I want to be able to drag the reverse foot chain around. So why we do this, it's going to make a lot more sense later as I step through the procedure. So I'm going to hide reverse foot chain real quick. I'm going to create a couple more IK handles, but this time I'm going to make single chain solvers. I'm going to make a single chain solver from the ankle to the ball, and then another one from the ball to the toe. And then I'm going to label them as well in the outliner. Nope. So I'll call this LIK ball, LIK toe. Good. So then I'm going to take these IK handles, I'm going to add it to the blue layer that I've made over here. Nice. So now what I'm going to do is, okay, going back, I'm going to reveal the foot controller layer again. So what I'm going to do is, okay, so these steps are also outlined just in the notes, but I'm going to reiterate here as well. So what I'm going to do is follow like how I do it here. I take the reverse foot ankle, click on the IK leg, and then parent it. So now what this enables us to do is, okay, I parented it the wrong direction. Actually, yeah, you click on the IK handle first, then you click on the ankle, and then you parent it. So now, if I move the controller around, you can start to see the foot is starting to follow where I'm moving the controller. Okay, so now I have two more IK handles. I'm going to take the ball IK handle and parent it to the ball of the reverse foot chain, and then I'll click on the toe and parent that to the reverse toe joint. So as a result, now not only I drag the controller, but you can see how if I drag it past where the foot can physically stretch, you can see the foot pointing downwards if I stretch. If I move the foot controller down, the point looks down. If I move it all the way to the side, the foot still moves to the side, but you can start to see it slightly tiptoe on the ground a bit more. And then one of the other reasons why we do this is that if I click on the ball controller, like let's say that you want your character to tiptoe, in order to tiptoe, you keep your toes on the ground, but you take the ball joint and rotate it up so your heels are a bit higher off the ground. You can rotate the ball joint and the foot will follow, or you can take the heel joint and you could, lift it. So you can rotate your foot so the heel's still on the ground, but the toes are now pointed in the air. So this is why we create a reverse foot chain. So now that we have that done, so are we all caught up to the reverse foot chain part? If you need a recap, the same steps are outlined in the notes. Okay, so now that we have the reverse foot chain made, what I am going to do now is, now that I have the reverse foot chain made, alright, so I think that actually wraps up for this part of the video. So, are there any questions about the leg before we move on to the arms? Alright, let's move.